The contract stays unsigned, Du Hyuk said. He did not raise his voice. He simply pushed the leather folder back across the glass table. Chairman Park folded his hands. The council expects an alliance, Du Hyuk. A succession without an heir is a ship without an anchor. You are 34, your father would have finalized this. My father made decisions based on emotion. It cost him his fleet. Du Hyuk kept his gaze steady. He did not look at the other elders in the room. He did not need to. He knew exactly what they were thinking. They wanted the Morty alliance. They wanted him tied to a wife, manageable and distracted. In the corner of the room, Evelyn quietly filled a glass with ice water. She moved without making a sound. Her uniform was crisp, her posture straight. She set the glass near Chairman Park's elbow and stepped back to the wall. Du Hyuk did not look at her either. He never did. We need the port secured by the end of the quarter, Park said, his tone dropping. Do not let pride ruin this family. It is not pride, Du Hyuk replied. It is control. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. The meeting was over. If the council has concerns about the Busan port, I will address them tomorrow, but my marriage is no longer a topic for this table. He walked out, the heavy mahogany doors shut quietly behind him. Evelyn remained in the room, picking up the discarded water glasses. She had heard everything, and she knew the chairman was not going to let it go. Du Hyuk stood by the window of his private office, watching the rain hit the glass. The Busan port was a grey blur in the distance. You embarrassed Park, his mother said from the doorway. Madame Kang stepped inside, her steps measured. You are testing their patience. They are testing mine, Du Hyuk replied. He did not turn around. You need stability. The shipping routes are volatile. Jaewoon has been stalling the customs clearances all week. Rumors are spreading that we are losing our grip. Let them spread. Madame Kang sighed, a soft, calculated sound. A wife brings capital, it brings allies. I do not care if you love her, I care that you survive. Marriage is a vulnerability, you know that better than anyone. His mother paused, she knew exactly what he meant. Do not punish your future for your father's mistakes. The council is meeting again on Friday. Give them a name by then. She left the room. Du Hyuk finally turned from the window. He walked to his desk and looked at the manifest reports. The numbers from the southern docks were wrong. It was a small discrepancy, easily missed, but Du Hyuk never missed anything. The foundation of his empire was shifting. The next morning, Director Seo stood silently, while Han Jaewoon paced the length of the estate's lower meeting room. An inspection is coming, Jaewoon said, his voice tight. The port official looked tired. They are sending a team from Seoul. They want to look at the storage manifests for the last 6 months. Delay them, Du Hyuk said. He sat at the head of the table reviewing a digital tablet. I cannot delay a federal audit. The council is already nervous. If they find the missing cargo logs from Pier 4, they will freeze your assets. Evelyn wiped down the sideboards. She held a damp cloth moving methodically over the polished wood. She did not look at the men. She focused only on the dust. I will handle the logs, Du Hyuk told Jaewoon. Keep your office quiet. Jaewoon nodded sharply and hurried out. Director Seo lingered. T-Rin is meeting with Chairman Park today, Seo mentioned quietly. Your cousin is positioning himself. I am aware, Du Hyuk said. He looked up. For the first time his eyes landed on Evelyn. She was gathering the empty coffee cups. She moved with a steady, unhurried rhythm. She did not seem afraid of the tension in the room. Leave the rest, Du Hyuk told her. She nodded once and walked out. It was past 2 in the morning. The estate was completely silent. Du Hyuk sat in the dark kitchen, a glass of dark liquor resting in his hand. He was not drunk, but his mind felt heavy. He heard soft footsteps in the hallway. He remained still in the shadows. Evelyn walked into the adjoining pantry. She turned on a small lamp. She had a stack of discarded office papers in her hand, meant for the shredder. Du Hyuk watched as she paused, looking at the top sheet. It was a copy of the Pier 4 manifest. That makes no sense, she murmured to herself. Her voice was low and calm. The insurance code is a Class B classification, but the weight limits are Class A. They did not lose the cargo. They rerouted it through the domestic line. Du Hyuk stopped breathing. He stared at her through the open archway, the discrepancy he had spent 3 days trying to trace. She had seen it in 10 seconds. Evelyn placed the paper in the shredder bin, turned off the lamp and walked back toward the staff quarters. Du Hyuk looked down at his glass. He set it on the counter. The silence in the kitchen felt entirely different now. The next afternoon, Du Hyuk intentionally left a revised shipping schedule on the hall table. It was a trap. The routing numbers were deliberately swapped. He went to his study and left the door open an inch. 10 minutes later, Evelyn walked down the hall with a stack of fresh towels. She stopped by the table. Du Hyuk watched through the narrow gap. She looked at the schedule. She did not touch it. She simply stared at it for a long moment. He saw her head tilt slightly. She knew it was wrong. She looked down the hall directly at the partially open door of his study. She did not say a word. She picked up a pen from the table, crossed out the routing number, wrote the correct one in the margin and walked away. Du Hyuk opened the door and walked to the table. He looked at her neat, precise handwriting. It was exactly right. He picked up the paper and folded it into his pocket. He did not know why an American maid possessed a deep understanding of maritime logistics, but he knew she was not just an employee anymore. She was an asset, and assets needed to be understood. At midnight on Thursday, the inevitable happened. Director Seo called Du Hyuk's private line. The lawyer's voice was remarkably flat. Container 402 is gone from the private docks. Du Hyuk sat up in bed. Gone. Vanished. The cameras went dark for 12 minutes. The logs show a routine transfer, but the port authority has no record of it leaving the gate. Du Hyuk dressed quickly in the dark. A missing container was not just a financial loss. It was a message. Someone was proving that his grip on the port was failing. When he walked downstairs, the estate was already waking up. Security guards moved through the hallways. Evelyn stood near the front door, holding his dark coat. She held it out as he approached. "Do you know what happened?" he asked her. It was the first time he had spoken to her directly about business. "Someone bypassed the security grid," she said quietly. "You need to check the manual override logs at the secondary gate. The main gate is a distraction." Du Hyuk looked at her face. Her expression was completely neutral. He took the coat from her hands. "Stay inside the estate," he told her. He did not wait for her answer. The council room felt like a courtroom. Chairman Park sat at the center looking grave. Next to him sat Kang Tae-rin. Du Hyuk's cousin wore a faint, polite smile. It was the smile of a man who knew he was winning. "A missing container is unacceptable," Park said. "We look weak. The port authorities are asking questions. The buyers are asking questions." "I am handling the buyers," Du Hyuk said calmly. "Are you?" Tae-rin asked. His voice was smooth. "Because from where I sit, cousin, it looks like you are distracted. You have no alliances, you operate alone. A solitary leader is easily isolated." "I do not need a wife to secure a shipping dock," Du Hyuk replied. "Perhaps you do," Park interrupted. "Lucia Morty arrives in Busan tomorrow. You will meet with her. You will entertain the alliance. If you refuse, the council will vote on your capacity to lead." It was an open threat. Tae-rin's smile widened just a fraction. Du Hyuk looked around the table. He saw the shift in loyalty. He nodded slowly. "I will meet with her." He left the room, his mind already calculating the next move. He needed leverage. He needed to know who opened the secondary gate. Director Seo sat across from Du Hyuk in the private study. The room was soundproofed. "I looked into the maid," Seo said. He placed a thin folder on the desk. "Evelyn Carter, 32, born in Chicago, no criminal record." "Why is she here?" Du Hyuk asked. Her father was Marcus Carter. He ran logistics for the Western Seaboard Syndicate until he died 5 years ago. She grew up learning supply chains, smuggling routes, and port management. She came to Busan 2 years ago, voluntarily. Du Hyuk opened the folder. He looked at her employment history. She was overqualified to clean floors. She was hiding in plain sight. "Is she a risk?" Seo asked quietly. "No," Du Hyuk said. "She gave me the manual override idea for the gate. She was right. Tae-rin's men used the secondary exit." Seo looked surprised. "She knows our operations." "She knows everything," Du Hyuk said. He closed the folder. "Keep this quiet. If Tae-rin finds out who she is, he will use her, or he will kill her." "What do you want to do?" "Nothing," Du Hyuk said, "but we make sure she does not leave this house." Evelyn noticed the change on Tuesday. She was carrying laundry from the East Wing when she saw the 2 men standing near the staff entrance. They were not the usual estate security. They wore dark suits and did not speak. When she walked to the kitchen, one of them followed at a distance. When she went out to the courtyard to dust the patio furniture, they positioned themselves by the gates. They were not watching the perimeter, they were watching her. She finished her work and returned to her small room behind the kitchen. She sat on the edge of her bed and looked at her hands. Do Hyuk knew. He had figured out who she was, or at least that she was too observant. She was not afraid. She had lived in this world long enough to know the difference between being a target and being protected. Do Hyuk was shielding her. But protection in this family came with a price. It meant she was now a piece on his board. She stood up and locked her door. She would not be a pawn for the Kang family. If he wanted to play a game, she needed her own leverage. Lucia Morty walked into the estate like she already owned it. She was tall, elegant, and entirely calculated. Do Hyuk met her in the main foyer. He offered a polite bow, which she returned with a steady gaze. Your home is quiet, Lucia noted. It serves its purpose, Do Hyuk replied. Evelyn stood near the staircase, holding a silver tray with fresh tea. She waited until they moved to the formal living room before entering. She set the cups down carefully. My father expects a contract by the end of the week, Lucia said, ignoring Evelyn entirely. We open the European routes to you. You give us access to Busan. The marriage seals the trust. Trust is earned, not signed, Do Hyuk said. Do not play games, Do Hyuk. Your counsel is restless. Your cousin is ambitious. You need me more than I need you. Evelyn poured the tea. Her hand did not shake. She stepped back and walked out of the room. Do Hyuk watched her leave before turning back to Lucia. I will review the contract, he said quietly, but his mind was on the quiet American woman walking down the hall. Director Seo laid out the documents on the heavy oak desk. The inheritance clause is clear, Seo said, pointing to a highlighted section. Your grandfather wrote it himself. If the council votes a lack of confidence, you must be married to maintain majority voting rights. If you are single, T-Rin can challenge your succession. Do Hyuk looked at the paper. T-Rin is forcing my hand. He stole the container to create the panic. Now he waits for me to refuse the Morty woman so he can call a vote. Will you sign it? Seo asked. Lucia wants control of the southern docks. I will not give a foreign syndicate my home territory. If you do not marry her, you lose the whole empire. Do Hyuk leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his temple. The walls were closing in. The elders were watching his every move. T-Rin was waiting for a mistake. He needed a way to satisfy the inheritance clause without giving up his power. He needed a partner who had no backing, no syndicate, and no desire for his empire. He looked toward the closed door of his office. He thought about the woman who corrected his shipping manifests. Han Jae-woon arrived unannounced. The port official was sweating despite the cool air conditioning. He found Do Hyuk in the study. The federal audit escalated, Jae-woon said rapidly. They are not just looking at the cargo anymore, they are looking at the personnel, everyone who has access to the estate or the docks. Do Hyuk narrowed his eyes. Why? Anonymous tip. Someone told them you are employing undocumented labor to bypass security checks. T-Rin, Do Hyuk said quietly. They are checking visas. They want passports by tomorrow morning. Anyone out of compliance will be detained and deported, including your staff. Do Hyuk went perfectly still. Evelyn's visa. She had come to Busan 2 years ago. He did not know her legal status, but he knew T-Rin was digging. If they took Evelyn, they would interrogate her. She knew too much about the override codes. Stall them, Do Hyuk ordered. I cannot stall immigration. They are already at the lower gate. Do Hyuk stood up. He walked past Jae-woon without another word. The quiet control he maintained was beginning to crack. He had to get to Evelyn before the investigators did. Evelyn was in her room when the knock came. It was loud and authoritative. She opened the door. 2 men in immigration uniforms stood in the narrow hallway. Behind them stood the estate's head housekeeper, looking nervous. Passport and work permit, the taller man said. Evelyn kept her face blank. They are in my locker in the main office. Go get them, we will wait. She walked down the corridor. Her heart beat a slow, steady rhythm. Her work visa had expired 3 months ago. She had delayed the renewal to avoid drawing attention to her background. She reached the main office. The investigators followed closely. Just as she opened her locker, Du Hyuk stepped into the room. He did not look at her, he looked at the investigators. "This estate is private property," Du Hyuk said. His voice was dangerously soft. "We have a mandate, Mr. Kang." Du Hyuk handed the man a phone. "Director Seo is on the line. He has secured a 72-hour injunction from a federal judge. Leave my house." The man listened to the phone, his face tightening. He handed it back and signaled his partner. They walked out. Du Hyuk finally turned to Evelyn. "My office now." Du Hyuk closed the office door. The click of the lock sounded loud in the quiet room. "Your visa is expired," he said. It was not a question. Evelyn stood near the desk. "Yes." "You knew they would deport you. You knew they would question you about the shipping logs. Why did you not tell me?" "You are my employer," Evelyn said calmly, "not my keeper." Du Hyuk stepped closer. The space between them felt suddenly small. "I am the only reason you are not in a federal transport right now." "Are you protecting me?" she asked. She tilted her head, her gaze meeting his directly. "Or are you controlling me? You put guards at my door, you intercepted a federal audit. You do not want me safe, you want me quiet." Du Hyuk stared at her. She was not intimidated, she was challenging him. "I cannot have T-Rin questioning you," he admitted quietly. "T-Rin is not your problem," she said. "Your inheritance clause is, you need a wife to keep your seat, and you think I owe you a favor." Du Hyuk stopped. She knew about the clause, she knew everything. They stood in silence, the truth finally bare between them. The medical clinic was discreet, located on the edge of the city. Evelyn sat in the sterile room, holding the printed results in her hand. She stared at the word. It was the result of a single, quiet night 3 months ago, a night when the estate was empty. When Du Hyuk had come back from his father's memorial exhausted and broken, and she had stayed to pour him a drink. They never spoke of it. It was a lapse in their careful rules. Now it was a liability. Director Seo walked into the clinic waiting room 10 minutes later. He had tracked her transport. "Immigration flagged your medical file during the background check," Seo said softly as she walked out. "The audit triggered a release." Evelyn stopped in the hallway. "Who else knows?" "I intercepted the flag," Seo replied. "But T-Rin has people in the local data center. It is only a matter of time before he sees the anomaly." "Does Du Hyuk know?" "Not yet," Seo said. He looked at her with quiet sympathy. "A child changes the succession line. It changes everything. You need to tell him before his mother finds out." Evelyn folded the paper. The choice was no longer just hers. The emergency council meeting was called for Thursday evening. Chairman Park pounded his hand on the table. "The audit is a disgrace. The missing cargo is a disgrace. We are voting on the succession tonight." Du Hyuk sat at the head of the table. He looked at T-Rin. His cousin looked entirely too calm. "You have not secured the Morty alliance," Park continued. "You have no heir. The inheritance clause is unfulfilled. T-Rin is prepared to step in." Du Hyuk remained silent. He knew what was happening. It was a coordinated strike. If he spoke, he would have to reveal he had no defense. Director Seo stood near the wall. He caught Du Hyuk's eye and gave a nearly imperceptible nod. Seo had discovered the data breach. He knew what T-Rin was holding back. "I have time to fulfill the clause," Du Hyuk stated smoothly. "You have until midnight," T-Rin said, finally speaking, "unless there is something you wish to share with the council right now." T-Rin was baiting him. He knew about the medical records. If Du Hyuk denied having an heir, T-Rin would produce the records and ruin him for lying to the council. Du Hyuk kept his mouth shut. The silence in the room grew heavy. Du Hyuk found Evelyn in the estate gardens. It was cold, but she stood without a coat, looking out over the water. He stopped a few feet away. The silence stretched between them, heavier than it had ever been. "Seo told me," Du Hyuk said. His voice was barely a whisper. Evelyn did not turn around. "I was going to handle it." "How? By leaving? By letting T-Rin use it to destroy both of us?" She finally looked at him. "It is my life, Du Hyuk. I did not ask for a place in your war." "You are in it," he said firmly. He took a step closer. "T-Rin knows. He is waiting to use the medical records to prove I lied to the elders. If I claim the child, I must marry you. If I do not, I lose the council and you lose your protection." Evelyn searched his face. She saw no panic, only a terrible, crushing control. "I will not be a forced bride," she said quietly. "I will not raise a child in a home where they are just a clause in a contract." "Then what do you propose?" he asked. She looked back at the dark water. "We play my game." Madame Kang sat in the private tea room with Chairman Park. "The rumors are distasteful," Park said, sipping from a delicate cup. "A maid, an American, if the medical records are true, your son has disgraced the bloodline." Madame Kang kept her expression perfectly composed. She had seen the files. She had spent the entire night investigating Evelyn Carter's background. "Du Hyuk is a man under pressure," Madame Kang said smoothly. "Men make errors. The council will not accept a bastard as an heir, nor will we accept a servant as the lady of this house." Madame Kang set her cup down. The porcelain clinked softly. "I understand your concerns, Chairman. The family image must remain intact. If the girl is pregnant, she will be compensated and sent away. Du Hyuk will marry Lucia Morty." Park nodded, satisfied. "See that it is done." When Park left, Madame Kang did not move. She looked at the empty seat across from her. She had publicly distanced herself from the child to appease the elders, but she had read the files on Evelyn's father. She knew the woman was brilliant. She knew Evelyn was the only one who could outsmart Tyrin. The inspection at the port was supposed to be routine. Evelyn accompanied Director Seo to the lower docks to deliver paperwork to the customs office. Du Hyuk had ordered her to stay close to the lawyer. They were walking past a stack of shipping containers when the heavy machinery above them groaned loudly. Evelyn stopped. Her father had taught her the sounds of a dockyard. A crane holding a steel container was swinging directly over their path. The warning siren was off. "Move," Evelyn said softly. She shoved Director Seo hard into the narrow gap between two grounded containers. A second later, the steel cable snapped above them. The massive container hit the concrete where they had just been standing. The sound was deafening. Dust plumed into the air. Shouts erupted from the dockworkers. Evelyn stood up slowly, brushing concrete dust from her coat. She looked up at the crane operator's cabin. It was empty. Seo grabbed his phone, his hands shaking. "That was not an accident." "No," Evelyn said calmly. She looked at the wreckage. "It was a message. Tyrin does not want me sent away. He wants me gone." Du Hyuk arrived at the port 10 minutes later. His car tires screamed against the concrete. He walked through the crowd of dockworkers. His face was a mask of cold fury. When he saw Evelyn standing near the customs office, unharmed, his chest hitched once. He hid it instantly. Director Seo approached him. The cable was cut. Someone bypassed the safety locks. "Where is she?" Du Hyuk asked. "Inside, she is shaken but fine." Du Hyuk walked into the small office. Evelyn was sitting in a plastic chair, drinking water. She looked up when he entered. He closed the door behind him. He did not ask if she was okay. He walked to the window and looked out at the crushed container. "They targeted you," he said. The control in his voice was fragile. "Yes. Tyrin knows the elders want you gone. He decided to do the job for them to ensure you can never be used as my leverage." Du Hyuk turned to look at her. "I cannot hide you anymore." Evelyn met his eyes. She was not crying. She was not terrified. She was analyzing. "Then don't hide me, claim me." Du Hyuk stared at her. The decision settled in his chest, heavy and permanent. The council elders were gathered in the main hall when Du Hyuk walked in. The room fell dead silent. Evelyn walked beside him. She did not wear a maid's uniform. She wore a tailored black coat. She stood straight, looking exactly like the daughter of a syndicate strategist. Tyrin narrowed his eyes. "What is this?" Du Hyuk walked to the head of the table. "You wanted a succession plan. You wanted the inheritance clause fulfilled." "We wanted the Morty alliance," Chairman Park corrected sharply. "Lucia Morty only brings capital. Evelyn Carter brings the entire Western Seaboard logistics network. Her father built the routes you have been trying to access for a decade." The elders murmured. Tyrin stood up. "She is a servant and she is undocumented." Du Hyuk looked at his cousin. "She is my wife. We filed the papers an hour ago, and she is carrying the next heir of this syndicate." The room went completely still. Du Hyuk had played his final card. He had acknowledged the child. He had secured the clause, and he had protected her. He did not look at Evelyn. He did not need to. They stood side by side, an unyielding front against the entire room. Lucia Morty stood in the foyer, watching the bags being loaded into her car. Du Hyuk stood near the door. I apologize for wasting your time. Lucia offered a dry smile. You did not waste my time, you showed me your hand. You married an American to secure your seat. It is a bold move, but it makes you a target. I am always a target. Lucia turned to leave, then paused. If she ever leaves you, call me. She walked out. Inside the study, Director Seo was packing his briefcase. T-Rin is demanding an inquiry into the port accident, Seo said. He wants to frame Jae-woon for the crane failure. Let him try, Du Hyuk said. You have the security footage from the secondary gate. Yes, it clearly shows T-Rin's men tampering with the override. Hold it, Du Hyuk ordered. We do not strike yet. We let him think he still has a chance. The council vote is suspended indefinitely now that the inheritance clause is met. Seo nodded. He had chosen his side. He was loyal to Du Hyuk. But as he looked at the closed door of the study, he wondered how long this fake marriage could hold. Madame Kang sat in the drawing room. Evelyn sat across from her. No tea was poured. You outplayed them, Madame Kang said. Her tone was completely neutral. I survived them, Evelyn corrected quietly. It is the same thing in this family. The older woman folded her hands in her lap. I publicly stated I would not accept you. You understand why. You gave Chairman Park the illusion of control. You made him think you were on his side, so he would not view you as a threat. Madame Kang's eyes gleamed with faint approval. You are smarter than my son realizes. He thinks he is protecting you. He does not know you are protecting him. Evelyn remained silent. The elders will test you, Madame Kang continued. They will try to break this marriage. If you show weakness, they will tear you apart. I don't break easily. Madame Kang stood up. She walked toward the door, then paused. Eat well, the doctor comes on Tuesday. We need a strong heir. She left the room. It was not a warm welcome. It was an acknowledgement. Evelyn had earned her place at the table. T-Rin's downfall was not a public execution. It was a quiet erasure. Du Hyuk arranged the meeting in a private booth at a high-end restaurant. T-Rin arrived looking confident. Du Hyuk slid a plain manila envelope across the table. T-Rin opened it. Inside were photographs of his men cutting the crane cable. Alongside them were the manual override logs from the night the container vanished, signed with T-Rin's security authorization. T-Rin's smile slowly faded. He looked up. You have 48 hours to transfer your shares back to the family trust, Du Hyuk said. His voice was calm, empty of anger. You think Chairman Park will let you do this? Chairman Park has already seen these files, Du Hyuk lied smoothly. He agreed that a quiet retirement to the Jeju estate is best for your health. T-Rin stared at him. The power had shifted completely. He had overplayed his hand, and Du Hyuk had waited for the exact moment to close the trap. You are a cold man, Du Hyuk, T-Rin whispered. I am, Du Hyuk agreed. He stood up and left the restaurant. The threat was neutralized. The empire was secure. The estate was quiet. The storm had passed. Du Hyuk stood on the balcony overlooking the sea. The night air was sharp and cold. He heard the glass door slide open behind him. Evelyn stepped out. She stood next to him. They did not touch. T-Rin is gone, Du Hyuk said quietly. I know, Seo told me. They looked out at the dark water. The marriage documents were signed. The inheritance was locked. They had won the war, but there was no victory parade. There was only this heavy, enduring quiet. You did not have to do this, Du Hyuk said. He kept his eyes on the horizon. You could have taken the money and left. I chose to stay, she replied. He finally turned to look at her. He saw the strength in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes. There were no declarations of love. There were no dramatic apologies for the past. They were two people who had survived by burying their weaknesses, now bound by a choice they made together. We have a lot of work to do, Du Hyuk said softly. Evelyn nodded. Yes, we do. They stood together in the cold air, unbroken, secure, ready. The war for the Kang Empire is over, but their true reign has just begun. Instead of a grand, dramatic confession, Du Hyuk and Evelyn built their contract marriage on something much stronger, absolute loyalty and survival. In a world where trust is a liability, they chose each other. But I want to hear your opinion on this ending. Drop down to the comments and tell me. Did Evelyn make the smartest move by stepping up beside a cold mafia boss, or should she have taken the money and disappeared? Do you think Duhayak will ever fully drop his guard, or is this slow-burn dark romance destined to stay a strictly calculated partnership? Who was the real mastermind in this game of power, Evelyn, Duhayak, or the quietly ruthless Madame Kang? If you enjoy high-stakes mafia romance where the tension is heavy and the power couples lead with strategy instead of emotion, hit subscribe. Let's debate the future of the Kang Syndicate in the comments below.